My boyfriend of 8 years cheated on me with his best friend's fiancé and is now begging me for a second chance. For some background, I'm a 28-year-old who met my 28-year-old boyfriend in college. He was struggling with his party lifestyle while I thrived as a studious introvert. I helped him, and despite initial hatred, I fell in love. He waited 4 months for a kiss and a year for sex, being my first. He gave up partying for me, and we formed a new friend group. However, he didn't give up his childhood best friend Max, who always disliked me and questioned our relationship. I told my boyfriend I wasn't comfortable with Max, so he kept him away from me, but they still hung out. Recently, Max got engaged to his long-term on-again, off-again girlfriend and invited both of us to celebrate. It would have been just the 4 of us. I declined, which in retrospect was a mistake. My boyfriend offered to stay with me, but I told him he didn't need to, and I'd understand if he wanted to support Max, even though I despised the guy. Again, this was a mistake. The next morning, my boyfriend came home crying. We lived together, and he was still clearly hungover, so I bathed him and put him to bed. When he woke up a few hours later, he told me everything. Apparently, he got extremely drunk at the party. Max's fiancé, whom I'll call the homewrecker, was very flirty with him all night and took care of him when he passed out. The next thing he remembers is waking up with the homewrecker performing oral sex on him while he was exposed. He says he was too drunk and just went along with it while Max watched. According to my boyfriend, they're into the whole hot wife thing, whatever that means. The next thing he remembers is waking up exposed next to the homewrecker with used protection around them. He rushed home after that. My heart is breaking right now, and I really don't know what to do. He's been begging me for a second chance, even showing me that he blocked Max and the homewrecker on everything. He promised never to contact them again and swears not to drink when I'm not around. He also says he'll keep his phone unlocked so I can look through it whenever I want, no questions asked. He keeps telling me how much he regrets it, and how much he loves me, and that I'm the only one. The sad thing is, I believe him. This man was my first everything, and I feel like my world is crumbling. A few weeks ago, we were thinking about getting married and planning for children. Now I can't even look at him without my heart breaking. This all happened a few days ago, and I've barely left the room. He's giving me space but doing little things to make me fall for him again. He keeps the house clean, cooks my favorite foods, and leaves short love notes beside them on the dinner table. I'm lost right now. I desperately want to forgive him, but every time I look at him, I can't shake the image of him with another woman. I know I was never his first, but he promised I would be his last, and he broke that promise. Despite everything, deep down, I still love him. I don't know where to go from here. I'm crying just typing this out. I don't have anyone to talk to about this. He was the one I usually turn to for help. I love him, but I don't know if I can trust him anymore. Should I give him a chance? Would couples counseling help? Should I just cut my losses and end it? He seems very remorseful and confessed everything immediately. Sorry for the long rant. I'm just lost right now. Update, 3 days later. A lot has happened in the last few days. Some of you might be glad to know that he left me for not being supportive. Just kidding. I guess you wanted that to happen, but here's what really happened. After reading some of your comments, I started to see things from a different perspective. I never really thought of it as anything other than cheating, and it didn't help that when he came home that morning, he claimed to have cheated. My mind went to a dark place where logic went out the window. It's not an excuse, but I really wasn't in the right mindset after he said he cheated. It was only after realizing that this man would never willingly hurt me that all the anger and pain of being cheated on washed away. I couldn't bring myself to talk to him at first. He was on the couch blankly staring at the TV, looking empty. I sat beside him and told him I had no intention of breaking up. He came to life almost instantly, and before I knew it, his arms were wrapped around me. He was shaking, and I could tell he was crying. I was too. Remember when I said I felt my world was crumbling? Well, for the first time in what seemed like forever, I could feel it starting to fall back into place. I didn't realize how calming a simple embrace could be. Everything was starting to feel right again. Then we talked. He apologized again for cheating, and when I told him I didn't think he cheated, he looked puzzled. I asked him if he gave consent, and he said no. I tried to explain, but I guess he still doesn't realize he was actually taken advantage of. He said that after what happened, his first thought was that he had cheated and was so afraid of losing me. This man, after being assaulted, first thought of how he betrayed me instead of how he was betrayed himself. I was floored. He said his first response had to be to win me back, which is why he's been going the extra mile these last few days, taking care of me from a distance. When it was my turn to speak, I told him how sorry I was for not being supportive. I jumped to conclusions without thinking clearly, which was out of character for me. After a few more exchanges, the conversation shifted to Max and the homewrecker. I told him I never wanted him near Max or her again, and he agreed. I've always thought Max was a bad influence, but I never thought it would go this far, so I never stopped him from seeing his ex-best friend. He showed me his phone, which now has no lock. He said he blocked both of them on everything, but wanted to keep the open phone policy to prove he isn't in touch with Max. I urged him to file a police report, but he was against it, saying he couldn't bring himself to do it even if he was assaulted. I didn't know at first, but his family and Max's family had a long history of friendship. Their moms were college best friends, and their dads worked together. I thought they were just neighbors, but it was more than that. I didn't know because the topic was never brought up when I visited his family, and I haven't really met any of Max's family except for his little sister. He said he didn't want to ruin decades of friendship and would be content with just going no contact with Max. He's getting tested later today, and I hope the homewrecker didn't give him anything. I'm also pretty confident he didn't get her pregnant because Max absolutely hates children, so I'd imagine the homewrecker would be on birth control. My boyfriend and I concluded that Max most likely set the whole thing up to break us apart so he could have his best friend back. They used to be partners in crime when it came to parties and picking up women. I want to point out that I did not force him to change. He chose to do so for me, which makes me fall in love with him even more. When we first met, he was still the playboy party animal, but after hanging out with me for a few weeks, he said he didn't feel like sleeping around anymore. I didn't really believe him at first. I've also noticed that some people criticized me for making him wait a year for sex. I'm sorry, I just have different views. I believe that intimacy is for people who love each other, so I wasn't willing to sleep with anyone I wasn't deeply in love with and who didn't love me back. I don't judge people who sleep around. My boyfriend has a high body count, but I don't hold it against him. Back then, I just wanted to be sure I wasn't just a conquest, but someone he genuinely loved and saw a future with. Considering his past, I was skeptical and had my walls up, but he slowly tore them down. I'm glad he did. Reluctant as I was when he first asked me out, it's still one of the best decisions I've ever made. Max's plan had the opposite effect. It's rough now, but I can see this experience making our relationship even stronger. I love him more than ever, and I'm sure he feels the same way. The last few days have shown us both how crappy our lives would be without each other. It made us value each other more. Neither of us took the other for granted, and yes, we're both getting therapy, both individually and as a couple. To be honest, I'm still shaken by the whole thing. Even when we cuddle, I can still imagine her having her way with him, and I can't help but cry about it. If I'm still shaken, I can only imagine how much worse it is for him. But I'll be there for him every step of the way. I know he didn't cheat. I know he won't break my heart. I know he loves me, and I know I love him. It's hard right now, but knowing these facts makes me confident we can see this through. One Redditor pointed out that we were soulmates, and I like to think that we are. I can't see myself being with anyone but him. Thanks again for all your advice and for helping me see things differently.